Comparison is one of the most common struggles of our time. We scroll through social media, we measure ourselves against somebody else, and then we wonder, am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Why does it seem like their life is so much better than mine? Well, in a world where social media gives us a front row seat to everyone else's highlight reel, it can absolutely feel like you're somehow falling behind. But what if I told you that comparison is not just unhealthy, it's actually toxic? You see, comparison robs you of joy. It can stunt your growth. It can shift your focus from purpose to performance. But that's why today and throughout this entire season of my podcast, we're going to focus on exposing the trap of comparison for what it actually is. And that is a lie that is designed to keep you from fully walking in joy and fully walking in your calling. I could not think of a better person to help us explore this than someone who has actually navigated the highs and the lows of public success, but they have been able to stay anchored in authenticity. This person is a multi-Grammy Award-winning artist, a scholar, as well as an author whose latest book is challenging us to consider the cost of climbing higher. And we're about to have a conversation that I believe might just set you free. Hey y'all, real quick, I want to make sure that you know that if you enjoy my content, if you enjoy this podcast, if you even enjoy what I share on social media or in my e-newsletters, you need to become part of my Patreon community. My Patreon community is an exclusive community that will give you access to even more content that I make available publicly. You'll get early access to my podcasts on at least a monthly basis. I'm hosting a live Q&A to recap the conversations that I'm having, and you can join at different membership tiers depending on your budget, all right? So I want you to consider joining my Patreon community because I would love to connect with you in a deeper way. All right, now back to the conversation because it's going to be good. So Jonathan McReynolds truly is a household name. He's a musical powerhouse. He blends contemporary gospel with soul, with storytelling, and he has captured hearts worldwide. But let me just tell you, he is not simply gifted artistically. He has been recognized by his peers, by the industry for his genius. He's won multiple Stellar and Dove Awards. He is a multi-Grammy Award-winning artist and songwriter, and he's been recognized for very thoughtful, transparent songwriting. But beyond the music, y'all, he is an author. He's also an academic. And we're going to talk today about his personal lived experience, as well as his incredible new book that I need everybody to make sure that you pick up called Before You Climb Any Higher. Jonathan, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Nona, I'm absolutely great. It's good to talk to you, good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Oh, this is my pleasure. This is my pleasure. Listen, I think, this season we're talking about comparison. We're talking about insecurity. And I truly couldn't think of someone better to talk about this because you literally wrote a song called Comparison Kills. And
Yeah,
so it
I
feels
did.
like it feels like you have something to say on this topic. And I just want to start with this first question because I think people need to understand sometimes they walk into the successful chapter your life is on and assume that's the whole story. But I'd love you to help people understand, how did insecurity maybe show up in your life before you were the one we know as Jonathan McReynolds today?
I mean, I think that when you are not like in the public eye, I certainly was not eyeing doing this. I did not consider myself somebody that would ever be in front of a whole bunch of cameras. And so a lot of the things that I eventually had to become insecure about, that was after I started. That was when I started seeing
Mm,
myself on TV. I'm like, oh man, I look like that. Oh man, I sound like that. I think, I was just talking to a friend of mine. And they were like, I don't think we're supposed to have nearly as many mirrors as we have in
mm,
life. I don't know if we're supposed to be as plugged in. Imagine, eras ago where you you saw everybody else, but you didn't really see yourself. You don't know how
Mhm.
good or bad you looked. You don't know too much. You could see yourself in the water or maybe a little piece of metal. But I think that because we have so many ways to look at ourselves, so many opportunities to look at ourselves, and look at our highlights, look at our resumes, look at our Instagram bios, and then compare them to everybody else, uh, that's what really makes it hard. So before I started all of this, I don't think I had quite as many insecurities. I mean, I was always concerned about, how was maybe how well did I do? I'm a nerd, so I was always kind of grade driven. And, did I get an A? I still to this day, if I could get off of stage and somebody say, 87, that'd be fantastic. You know what I'm saying? Just give me a grade. B, A minus, C plus, that'd be fantastic. But I think and without that, that does leave like a question in my mind of how was that? How did that go? So I think that was kind of probably the biggest insecurity I had growing up, because so much of my life, even back then, was about performance. It just got
Mm.
worse once you start shining a whole bunch of lights and cameras on it.
So let me just first say to everyone watching, everyone listening, I did not send him these questions beforehand, but that was such a perfect segue for my next question. I think that people have this assumption that success will somehow inoculate them against insecurity. Like if I can just achieve the thing, if I can just get the title, if I can just win the award, then I'll be secure. But something that you said is actually it's a hypothesis I have because I've been very blessed to achieve success in various domains, particularly in business. And what I have found is that I was never more insecure than when I was successful. And so I would love for you just to kind of double click into that assumption that people have. And where do you think that even comes from? This idea that once I succeed, then I'll be secure. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I know we haven't really brought up my book yet, um, but that's really what a lot of it is about. It's about the arrival fallacy that we have. It's that as soon as I get somewhere, then I'll have this. As soon as I get up there, I'll have this. Rest and security and self-actualization and applause and acceptance, all of that. That's just about 100 feet up. I just need to keep climbing, and once I get there, I'll have it all, and everything will be fine. And no, that's just not how it goes. The That's a lie that we tell ourselves about the mountain. And so my whole book is really trying to tell the truth about it. That the higher you go, the less life is up there, and the more you fear falling. I don't fear falling that much when I'm only 10 feet off the
Mm.
ground. But you fear falling once you become 1,000 feet off the ground. Now you have so much to lose. You have, uh, you know, uh, so many people who are now banking on your success. You're banking on your success. Your identity has now become success. So now the falling, not only do you lose stuff, not only do you lose position, but you kind of wonder if you're going to lose yourself and all the love that you are getting as your current successful self. And so all of that is just is the way our mind and our egos mess with us, and we have to learn how to turn that down so we can get to greener pastures.
Something that I think is profound. So we're talking about before you climb any higher, like something that's profound. You talk about this idea of internal altitude. And I've long said that I think a lot of people fail not because they're incapable, but because they get altitude sickness. They're not prepared for the thin air. They're not prepared for the conditions of elevation. Can you talk a little bit about what even inspired you to write this book? Like, what was the moment that you reflected on that became the anchor for why you wrote this?
Well, there's a lot of moments. I think that the assumption is for any artist, there's always like one spark that does it. And there probably is, but there's really normally about eight sparks that happen at the same time. And you just start to connect all the different dots. Um, for me, living in LA, being able to see the hills, the mountains, seeing how people worked up to the mountains. They want to live on top of the mountain, even though there's no yard up there. It doesn't look that fun. It looks very difficult sometimes to navigate all the mountains. But still, everybody wants to live up there because it's a status symbol. It says something about what you've achieved and maybe who you are if you're able to live up there. But um, once you kind of get up there, once you start to see what's happening and what people, the toll that the pursuit of success is having on people, and you're just like, wait a minute, maybe this is not as beautiful as I thought. Maybe this is not as amazing as I thought. And so de-romanticizing that mountain, and telling the truth about it. That's all I'm trying to do is tell the truth. There's nothing wrong with climbing. There's nothing wrong with succeeding and grinding and wanting to get up there, but we aren't meant to live there, and we aren't meant sometimes to go some of the heights that we go to. God definitely can elevate us to certain heights, um, but normally our ambition and our own ego, that's what pushes us up even farther
Mm,
and then doesn't allow us to ever come back down. And so learning how to distinguish his part from your part, his
yeah.
plan from your just trying to make your ex jealous and make your mama proud. Like if you can distinguish all of that, that is really very pivotal in managing your altitude because yeah, it's it's not meant for us to live up there. It's just really not. Visit, sure. Do something, do your mission, do your assignment, sure. But you have to come down and ground. You have to come down to the warmer air. We're not meant to be up there as long as our generation encourages us to.
That's so good. That is so, so good. We're actually not even designed to live there. Visit, fine, but you're not designed to live there. I think about the almost 6 years that I spent working at Meta. And of course, that's the company that owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all these social technology platforms. And I could see the metrics, how people are so consumed with these apps and the fear of missing out and all of that. How do you guard against comparison in this social media age, especially when, in many ways, I think social media is kind of a lifeline for many people's success, whether it's as an artist, as a business person? How do you guard against that trap?
I mean, you have to be a little aggressive. Now, I'm not the type that I don't like blocking. I feel like muting is dramatic. All of it. But honestly, the Bible tells you, hey, if your arm or your eye is causing you to sin, plug it out. Just get rid of that thing. And I mean, I think that that's a statement to how maybe aggressive we have to be with guarding our souls and our hearts sometimes. Yeah, I know you have to be on there for work, but some things you just don't need to see and you don't need to be there for long because social media is full of landmines. You can be on there for 8 hours and never run into anything, or you can be on there for 8 minutes and
Yeah.
something kicks you in the stomach. And so, we have to be very mindful with kind of maybe creating a little bit more safety for our hearts, even in the way we, navigate social media. Understand the things that just cause you to spiral and all the other stuff. But on the other hand, we also just can't avoid stuff. We also have to actually gain some strength, gain some identity, gain some peace and clarity about who we are and what God has for us, that we can actually see the same stuff and actually be strong enough to not let it affect us negatively. And I think that's the part that, we this generation we really need. Like we don't want to miss out on anything, so we consume everything, and then at best, we just set up these very difficult, hard boundaries and we just get off social media altogether. And that doesn't always make us stronger to deal with it. If you get off social media, now you need to be taking that time to get into maybe your book or get
Oof.
into the things that remind you of who you are. And you need to get, in the book, I call it, getting fat before the journey. That journey on the mountain, man, mountain climbers, they eat, 4 times the calories than we do because of how draining it is. And they have to prepare and they eat before they get up there and they eat, what I'm saying? You have to fatten yourself up with the identity that you have as a son or daughter of God, as your assignment and your mission and what God has to tell you to do. So that when you can actually, when you actually are on that mountain, you actually have some strength to fend against the stuff that is bound to come your way.
This is good, Jonathan. I feel like you're preaching without even trying to preach. I think you're preaching to people who need to understand that the mountain is beautiful. Like, as a matter of fact, it's beautiful from all angles. Like, it's beautiful from the ground, it's beautiful when you fly over it, but when you're actually on it, and all you have is an upward trajectory, you need something that's going to sustain you. And it can't just be, well, once I get to the top, then I'll have succeeded. How do you guard against that? I was talking to somebody, this was maybe a month or so ago, who's similarly in the music industry, very successful, multi-Grammy award winning artist. And I made the point that it's funny how people think, well, if I just get the Grammy, then I'll be successful. But the Grammys happen every year. And so you kind of feel yourself on this rat race, like, okay, I got it this year. If I don't get it next year and I release a project, then I will have failed. How do you guard yourself in that through the climb?
Yeah, I mean, it's guard yourself against is almost kind of it's the right words, but I think that people assume that guard is always just a wall.
Mm,
No, guards are also actively ready to shoot and fight. And
mm,
so it's not just, oh, I'm just going to make a boundary in front of me and I'm just not going to go to the Grammys. I'm just going to not even watch. I'll just wait for the results to come out. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can just wall yourself up that you don't even see what's happening. You try to act like you didn't see it. But more honestly, it's a human guard that is like
mm,
actively fighting the lies that come, actively fighting the concerns, the worries that come, actively fighting your own ego and how it's whatevering. And so, to me, it's not, oh man, I set up a guard like, 5 miles out, so I don't even have to deal with that no more. No, it comes right in my face and I have to guard against it. I have to shoot it. No, I'm not going to do that today. I have uh, steward this very well, and
mm,
God is proud and he's happy. Look at the impact that I've made over here. I
yeah.
can rest in the fact that I did what I was supposed to do. And if it does not amount to this particular award this year, oh well. That is not something that you can always just guard and put a wall up against. That's something that it might look at you dead in the face and you have to fight. Close
Mm,
combat. And um, for me, it's definitely something I have to fight. It's definitely a moment that I've been in the Grammys and just, felt pretty crestfallen. Like, man, dang, I was really, you sometimes you don't even realize how much you wanted it, until it
good.
doesn't happen.
That's so
Um,
good.
and so you just have to be honest with yourself. And as Christians, I think we always fancy, and it's the way some of these conferences and some of the preachers and some of the books are
Yeah.
set up. We imagine that at some point we're going to get to this place where stuff don't even bother us no more, and that's great.
Mm,
There's some things that you will conquer in that way, but there's a lot of stuff that, no, you have to keep restraining that dog every single time. You got to crucify yourself daily. You got to ask God for this bread daily. And there's a
mm.
lot of stuff that is gonna come and you have to just fight. You just have to say, no, I'm not gonna do that. You have to tell yourself the truth, even as these moments, they try to lie to you.
Hey, listen, I'm inserting myself in this conversation for just a minute because if you're enjoying this conversation and if you enjoy the many conversations that I host through my podcast, I want to invite you to join me for my free virtual masterclass, How to Bounce Back Better. My mission in life is to help you and people like you discover the power within you to not just go through stuff, not just survive, but I want you to learn how to grow through stuff, how to thrive, how How to Bounce Back Better is an hour-long virtual masterclass, and I offer multiple sessions every single week. If you want to register, all you have to do is head over to nonajones.com, and you will see a big link, a big button that says free masterclass. Just click the button and you can sign up today. I want to see you in the next masterclass because I promise you there are tools, tactics, strategies, and tips that have helped me build resilience that I want to give to you. So again, head over to nonajones.com to click the big free masterclass button and get signed up today. All right, now back to the conversation. You said a lot there that was rich. One thing that really kind of hit me in my heart was this idea that sometimes you don't even know that you want something until you don't get it. And what it triggered for me when you said that is when I released my last book, The Gift of Rejection, it was doing really well. And, as an author, like the gold standard of book success is the New York Times bestseller list. Like that is the gold standard. And my publisher and everybody was doing everything they could to support the project. I was out there like killing myself to try to get it out there. And it didn't make the list. And I remember because, throughout the whole process, I was just like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it's God's will. It's fine. Right. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, God, like, why did, and God was just kind of like, see, you thought you were okay, but you really wanted it. And it's not bad to want it. It's just that sometimes when your heart is set on something and you don't even realize it, I love how you juxtapose the mountain and the valley. Like you can be on the mountain and suddenly find yourself in a valley because of what you wanted and you didn't get. What made you decide to juxtapose the mountain and the valley? And why is the valley important to our experience?
Yeah, so I know that in a lot of biblical poetry, the mountains are like the high moments, and valleys are all these low moments. And we crucify the valley. There's so much bad press about the
Yeah.
valley. But again, when I look at mountains, when I actually look at a picture of the Rockies or whatever, what I see is a mountain that's very rugged and cold and full of snow, and that's the thing that we all seem to want to climb up.
Mm.
And the valley is actually full of life, and there's a river, and there's grass, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff, and you can't fall off the valley. It's just
Mm.
it's a wonderful place. So I'm actually not even considering that the valley is kind of this low moment. No, the low moments happen on the mountain. The low cold moments, the thin moments, are often because of those endeavors, those professional, familial, ministerial endeavors that we go after. And all of a sudden, because of a moment, because of somebody leaving, because of whatever, we feel the chill of the mountain. That ain't the valley to me. That's the mountain doing exactly what it looks like it should do. How are you surrounded by snow and not expecting to be cold yourself sometimes? How are you not seeing any trees up here, but still you are expecting there's going to be some life? No, fatherhood does not sustain the father. Stardom does not sustain the star. The church doesn't even do well at sustaining the pastor. No, it is the mountain does not sustain the people that are climbing it. The mountain just is the mountain. It just does, it's just sitting there doing what it's going to do. It is up to us to realize that staying up in this cold, lifeless place, it might be necessary for us to get up here for a second, but we live just the same way you go home at the end of the day. We live in the valley. We live in the place where there's green pastures, and there's a bunny hopping around, and there's a river. It's where all civilizations were started. They started in the river valley. They didn't open them up in the mountains because there's no life up there. And I'm just saying that a lot of times, if I could get this generation to realize that a lot of the hard times they're going through, and of course, we're not talking about grief. We're not talking about some of the things that happen with life, but I'm talking about the stuff that happens with career and the grind and just all the things we're trying to do for our lives. Some of that sickness is not a valley. That is the mountain doing exactly what mountains do.
Ooh.
we just keep trying to separate it away from the mountain. Oh no, it can't be the Grammys that did that to me. You know, it can't be the church and my big mega church. No, that's not the problem. The problem is over here. No, it is that climb that threatens to kill us if we do not ground and come back to an identity that is far away from the boss and the pastor and even the mom and the dad, and you come back down to the valley of just being a child of God.
Wow. See, this is why I felt like this book was such a perfect just a perfect part of this season, talking about insecurity and comparison, because I think a lot of times we do pursue the mountain not even because we're actually called to it, but just because we see somebody else climbing it. And it's like,
For
well,
sure.
they're climbing it, so something's wrong with me if I'm not climbing it. It's like, well, that's not even what you're called to. I was thinking about Philippians chapter 4 and 11, where the Apostle Paul he says, "I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. If I'm in the valley, I'm content. If I am by the brook, I'm content. If I am over in the pigeon forge, I'm content. If I'm on the mountaintop, I'm content. Wherever I am content." And so, how do you get to a place of contentment without comparison? And like, I'm also curious if you have a thought on what does it mean to be content and ambitious? Like, I just would love your thoughts on this because they seem to be diametrically opposed, but they may not be. I would love your thoughts on contentment and comparison.
Well, again, I think that again, a lot of the Christian thought, and this is not like judging anybody or anything, because I think the same. We always think of what to take out. What about my life? What about my walk? What about my behavior do I need to take out for God's sake? And to be honest, I think that there is more that needs to be added to the way we do things. It's, before you take out any of the behavior, and I mean, I pray that some of the behavior is taken out and you're delivered, but before any of that, add Jesus to these equations. I think
Right.
we jack ourselves up when we try to erase before we add. And so I'm thinking that the thing that can help you and help all of us deal with kind of this idea of comparison. Oh, what are they doing over there? Blah, blah. One, add to yourself daily this sense of being one of God's kids. Now, when you're one of God's kids, you're not just competing. You're not you're
Right.
not just a servant, you're not just a tool and you want God to see that you're the best possible hammer and for him to pick you. No, you are a son. You are already in the house. You're already taken care of. And that's a totally different vibe and a totally different sense of comfort and uh less stress, less concern, because while I may have some things to be taken care of, I'm also to be taken care of. I am stuff that is being taken care of. And so I think adding to yourself the identity of who you are, uh, obviously in Christ, but how that even translates to your life and the world around you, to me, that's the most important thing. Like, honestly, I don't even sing the way I sing unless at some point I had to just relax and recognize and accept that I just cannot sing like half of these gospel singers. I just can't do it. I can't pull it. I can't do it. None of it. And so, and if I did, it would be fake and they would call me out immediately. You have to be who you are, and I'm grateful that I found that freedom in music and how I presented that. But unfortunately, I didn't find that same freedom and fluidity in all the other parts of life. I was still trying to be, something else, even though I had accepted my limitations and strengths in music. Now can I do that as a full human? The music was being so used by God. The music was being so blah, 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 because of the way I was offering that to him. The human, though, was tripping because I held all of those things to myself. That human um, is the thing that gets, that's the entity that gets lived out and emphasized and highlighted and addressed in the valley. because on the mountain, I have to be an artist. I gotta be a boss.
So I'm curious because I can only imagine that this didn't happen overnight. Like um, this awareness and this acceptance that I am not them, right? And yet I am still valuable and I'm still worthy and I still have purpose. For someone who's maybe watching this or listening and they're just like, well, sure, that was easy for you to get there, Jonathan, because you literally sing like an archangel. I cannot do that. What would you say to that person, like to encourage them that maybe was something you had to start to believe for yourself to get free from that?
Man, I had a lot of thoughts that just all rushed in my head at the same time. Um, at a certain point, we got to use what we got. At a certain point, like I understand, I'm not as handsome as I don't know who's the guy that everybody talks about,
Jonathan
Mufasa guy,
McReynolds? You talking about the guy that talk about
whatever.
Jonathan McReynolds?
Whatever the guy, his name is slipping me,
It's
Or
Jonathan
Michael B.
McReynolds.
Jordan, whatever one of them dudes. Um, I'm definitely not as in shape as they are. I can't sing like Zacardi or Gene Moore. I can't dance like Kirk Franklin. I can't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but I do have something, and now how I use that something is really the determining factor of who I am. And okay, so you mind me kind of like just being a nerd with you for a second?
I would
This is
love
just
that
something
because
I
I'm
was
such a
really
nerd.
thinking about. Well,
Please.
a Bible nerd. Because, when I was a kid and I would hear certain stories and parables, my mind would go somewhere else. Like, why did God do it like that? What were they thinking? And I was really thinking about the the guys, where the master gave his three servants one talent of gold, 3 talents of gold, five. And, first of all, I'm thinking that's unfair. But here's what I love. Here's what I love about the guy who had three. The guy who had three could have looked at the guy who had five and been so disappointed that he didn't double his own. So that's just an extra thing. We always talk about the one. Now, I'll get to the one, the guy who only had one, but let's talk about three because there's a lot of folks who are listening to your show that have three. They have maybe not as much as others, but they still did go to college. They still are, pretty. They still are talented. They still do have some resources, and they're letting the fact that this other person that's five mess with them. And so let's talk about the three. At least can we at least be like the three? Yeah, there's other people who might have a little bit more. Somebody I got a good amount of followers on Instagram, but there are a lot of people that have way more. But can I be happy with my three enough to not even preserve it, but use it. Like do something with it. Like do something with it. And then that's the issue with the one is that he felt like he had like this idea of scarcity, I guess, that I'm just gonna preserve it. I just wanna I'm gonna hold it. I was talking to an introvert yesterday and I said, some of us introverts, our issue is that we want to end the day with what we started with. Why are we hoarding it? What are we gonna do with it? What are we gonna do with this little bit of talent of gold energy? What are we gonna do with that at 11 p.m.? Nothing. So why do we make such a big deal about holding it and preserving it and burying it so we can present it to ourselves or to God, pristine at the end of the day? We just kind of jack ourselves up with how we have something and we still don't use it because of how much other people have. And I think that while there was a certain lesson of what God wants us to do with our gifts in that parable, to me there was also a lesson of comparison. I just I just wonder if the three was aware of the five, and if that stopped him from doing what he was supposed to do, or if the one was aware of all the threes and the fives, and like I only got one, so now I got to keep it all to myself. And we see how the master responded to the person that preserved his and didn't do anything with it, versus the two and then particularly the three. That's the guy I'm the most proud of because he still used his stuff. He still doubled it. He saw people lower than him. We're in America. We definitely have more money than most of the people around this world. We see people that don't have as much as us, but we also see people who have more, and that can make us all stagnant. So shout out to the three talent guy who said, "Well, I'm still gonna grow mine."
That in and of itself was so encouraging. Like I know it encouraged people who were listening, but it also encouraged me because I remember when I was on Instagram and I had like I think it was like maybe 200 followers. And I couldn't believe that 200 people were following me. I was like, I don't know who these people are. Why are they following me? And then I remember getting to 1,000 and being absolutely mind blown. I cannot believe 1,000 people are following me. And then something happened around 5,000 where I was like, I got to get to 10. Like if I could just get to 10, then I'll be good. And then I got to 10 and I was like, if I could just get to 30. And I think it was because I saw somebody who had the 30 and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, man, if I could just get to 30, then I'll be real good. Got to 30. Then I was like, what about 100? Got to 100. Like it's just, it never ends. And so I think what you're saying is so profound, which is look, and it actually gets into what Paul said is look, whatever state you are in, be content, but take what you have and be willing to use it, multiply it, grow it. As we get ready to close, because I think this is, again, just so rich, I want everyone to pick up before you climb any higher. It contains so many nuggets of wisdom that I think will lead to you experiencing fulfillment whatsoever state you are in. And I think that's what's necessary. But I would like to offer to you, Jonathan, please share any last thoughts you'd like to share, as well as where people can pick the book up and how they can follow you.
Yeah, I was looking when you were talking about Paul, I was thinking not just being content with whatever state you're in, but I was thinking the verse where he was, hey man, I ran my own race. I ran it. You know what I'm saying? I finished this thing. I did what I was
Yeah.
supposed to do, and I can be content with that. Like that was good. I killed that. Woo, yeah, let's go. You know what I'm saying? And I think making sure that we recognize, and again, it's very difficult to distinguish and to recognize your own race when your head is scrolling down the feed. It's very hard to find out what your race is just by watching a whole bunch of other people's races, especially people your age, people that you would call peers, people that you feel like you're in competition or comparison with. Very difficult to do that while you are climbing and pursuing a certain level of success. No, where we kind of get our race marked out for us is while we are on the valley, while we're in the valley, while we're talking to God just as sons and daughters. Paul did not get a good sense of his own race when he was doing all the things that he was doing. No, he had to be knocked off, possibly knocked off a horse, knocked
Yeah.
down. He had to be blinded. That's being smacked down off the mountain. And that's when he starts getting understanding about what maybe his own race might look like. That's when he's given the confidence and the strength to figure that out. And so I just think that if we could divorce ourselves just for a moment, it doesn't mean you have to quit your job or anything like that, but just to not identify primarily as a boss or a CEO or a king or a queen or a this or that, an artist, a preacher, a pastor, blah, 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 and go back to just thinking of yourself. Because when you're thinking about those things, yeah, you're amongst other people that you might want to compare to and see how well you're doing. But if you go back to just being a son or daughter of God, you get your own race. You get your own idea of what success is. And I pray that all of us can daily get back to that place and be reminded what God has for us that day, that week, that season, that life, instead of spending so much time scrolling.
2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12 says, we do not dare to classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. When they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are not wise. Wisdom is not found in comparison. It's really found in walking in the unique call that God has placed on your life. Jonathan, this has been such a rich conversation. I'm grateful for your wisdom, your honesty, your
Thank you.
transparency, and I truly want everybody to pick up your copy of Before You Climb Any Higher. This book is going to change your life because it's going to ground you in your true identity, your true calling, your true purpose. And so I appreciate your time, and I thank you for tuning in. Hey friend, thank you so much for listening and maybe even watching this episode of The Nona Jones Show. If you enjoyed this conversation, I want to encourage you to become a member of my Patreon community. You see, on Patreon, you're not only going to get full-length episodes of my podcast, but you will also get early access to any new content that I share, including new podcast episodes, sermons, even behind-the-scenes clips of my travels. And depending on the tier at which you join, you will also be invited to some live Q&A conversations that I have with my Patreon community. So what I want you to do is head over to patreon.com/Nona Not Nora to get signed up today. I want to see you in my community. Thanks for being here.